I'm thrilled to kick us off today. I'm going to be brief because I have a stellar panel of some industry experts who are doing some really cool things. So one of the things I find is that the industry doesn't have a great definition of what CX is, at least not a unified one. We all have them in pockets. So I read this recently, and this is kind of my North Star. This is the definition that I'm going with, and I'd love to hear some feedback on it. But it's from David Augsburger, who's an Anabaptist theologian, and he said, being heard is so close to being loved that for the average person, they're almost indistinguishable. Pretty nice statement, isn't it? This slide from McKinsey is a study that came out last year. And what it illustrates is that experience is the key battleground for industry. And they talk about precise real-time customer engagement, not visits, not downloads, not clicks or views, engagement. And that's something much deeper. And the velocity of content is not more stuff faster. It isn't emails in a CRM stream. It's support in a live stream at the speed of need. If we look at where the industry is, customer centricity is a PowerPoint, customer empathy is a mindset. So the industry is ready to adopt customer experience. We've got the technology, we have everything we need, but right now we're low in terms of the adoption scale, which leaves the headroom for innovation to be pretty expansive and also an opportunity for leadership. I think feedback, customer feedback is a virtuous cycle. And feedback is not just asking. There's a bias in questions, there's a bias in interpretations, but there's a balance to be had in observation and seeing what people are doing, and also in bringing the customer into the discussion and involving them. Then we get into human analysis and machine analysis, which are really important, but you have to have both. You can't just have one in this day and age, and then letting the customer know that they were heard. So I like to say that, now that we've shown the world that we can, we've run low on excuses for why we aren't. COVID drained our industry's fast follower excuse tank. And we're at the intersection of gradually and suddenly. And face it, what happened during the pandemic, and is still happening, may not have been glamorous, but it was glorious. We changed how we were operating. We changed our speed. And our abilities have now outpaced even our own expectations. And this is experience. We didn't have an Americans with Disability Act before polio. So think about that. So we have to think about the race we are in. Before the customer gets to you, two things have happened for sure. They've come with expectations and they've been disappointed. Apple doesn't put instructions with any of their products ever. Yet you go onto a pharma site and you know who you are, you get into benefits verification or prior auth, and there's a 24-page PDF telling you how to do it. This isn't a UX issue, it's an empathy issue. There had to have been someone in the room that said, wait, what are we doing? So, we're always going to compete with other drugs, but the main thing is we're really competing on experience. This isn't the future. This is now. And maybe this is our one shot. We have the technology, we have the desire. And what we have to think about is the gravitational pull of what seems safe and familiar. Because that road back to where we were before COVID, it's well-worn, it's familiar, and it's mostly downhill. And it's lined with so-called experts and innovators who are going to seek to perpetuate the very problems to which they've been the solution. When the problem that we have is one of being indistinguishable from being loved by our customers. So the organizational question is not who owns customer experience. Everyone owns it. The question that I think we need to wrestle with is who acts on it. So I've got 3 people waiting in the wings who are doing just that. They are acting on it. So how about we get into the panel discussion whenever you guys are ready. So here are the folks that are going to be joining us: Rachel, Jared, and Trista.
And we're going to call them up to the stage. They will join us by responding and turning on their mic, and
there they are.
And I just got to find Rachel. Where are you, Rachel? I'm looking for you. All you got to do is turn on your mic and camera, and you will join the conversation. So, Rich, if you shave your beard, do you have to change your logo?
I actually do. But, it's a pandemic. I'm locked inside and I can't get any razors shipped to my house.
But if you did, then you could actually, or if you just trimmed it, you, me, and Jared could go into business as kind of like the Pep Boys of pharma customer experience.
Like separated at birth.
So I'll let you guys begin your discussion of patient experience in 2021.
Great. Well, thank you. So why don't we start with this? It'd be wonderful if you all could introduce yourself. And how about I start with Rachel?
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be here. I lead the digital marketing team at Alkermes, working on the psychiatry franchise, which includes Aristata, a long-acting injectable for schizophrenia, and a new product that we hope to come to market later this year for schizophrenia and bipolar. I've been in marketing for 23 years and digital marketing for 13 years across a variety of industries, including pharma and consumer products. And my legal caveat is that I'm here on behalf of myself and not representing the company. Thank you for having me. And I think we lost our moderator. So Jared, would you like to go next?
Sure, we can moderate ourselves. Jared Shechtman at Eisai Pharmaceuticals in the Marketing Technology Services Group. I've been in the pharmaceutical space for about 15 years or so, exclusively doing digital. I've worked with patients, agency side, consulting, in-house, and all over the industry. Worked on about 7+ launches at this point. And likewise, disclaimer, my opinions are mine alone, and not representative of Eisai. Seth, you're muted.
Oh gosh, I thought it was me, thank God.
Nope, still muted, Seth.
Trista, are your opinions your own?
They are.
Okay.
Thank you for not making me repeat that disclaimer. I really appreciate that. Hi, everyone. I'm Trista Walker. I'm president of B&O, and for the past 6 years, I've also been a member of the board of trustees of Thomas Jefferson University, where I also lead the enterprise quality, safety, and patient experience committee of the health board. Have worked in pharma marketing, digital marketing, and CX for over 20 years to date myself. My company, B&O, is celebrating its 40th birthday this year, and we are a creative boutique with a unique model that blends CX expertise with high-end brand creative that's designed to reach and influence consumers, businesses, and employees. And I'm really happy to be here and have an opportunity to serve on this panel.
Awesome. So let's dive right in, talking about the importance of patient experience to pharma marketers in 2021. And of course, you can weave in any type of changes, modifications, alterations that have happened in the last 12 months or so, or exactly 12 months if you're counting on my calendar. So, Rachel, talk to us about that. What's the importance of PX in 2021?
Well, I think it's obviously really important, I think, to anything we do, and particularly in 2021. I think, in general, patients are becoming more and more empowered with information. They have choice. They have, social media, review websites, any kind of forum they can get information on. And so they have the ability to make decisions and request products from their physicians. I think, in this day and age, particularly with COVID, it's more important in our industry in pharmaceuticals that we look at what's happening outside the pharma industry and try to surround patients with experiences such as omnichannel, that they're feeling like everything is connected. And I think pharma has a lot of room to grow in that area, but I think that in particular is really important in the world of COVID and hopefully beyond.
Great, thanks. So, this is like if this were an actual live event, we were all actually in a hotel, like I just blacked out for a minute and missed everything because suddenly I was gone. Tristan, Jared, did you get a chance to go ahead and introduce yourselves while I was gone? You did.
Yes.
Was it awesome? Great. So I would like to discuss what you guys are thinking about in terms of patient experience in 2021 in this era and then going forward. Who wants to?
Rachel just kicked us off.
Great.
So,
perfect.
With that question.
I knew that. Go ahead. So Tristan, what thoughts do you have?
Well, Rachel touched on patients being empowered and omni-channel, so I won't touch on that, but I do want to touch on something that you mentioned, Rich, in your intro, which is customer expectations, patient expectations, and competition. And it's not only about the competitors or other product services that your audiences are using outside of healthcare, but it's those things that they're now using in healthcare that are part of their healthcare picture. So it used to be, your brand, the physician, maybe the health system, the pharmacist, the payer. So there's a lot of people in the equation, but now it's also Livongo or biotelemetry and, or a health tech or an IoT company that are in the mix, in the direct mix of providing healthcare services. There was a great quote I saw probably 2 years ago that said, customer expectations are set to the last best experience that they've had. And they're not only having those last best experiences with the, consumer brands of the world, but it's happening within healthcare. So I think that elevates and amplifies the speeding up of the adoption curve that you mentioned, Rich, and makes it all the more important.
Great. And Jared, how about you? What are you seeing?
Yeah, for this past year, it's been incredibly important for us to meet our patients where they are and provide to them the services that they need when they need it. And that is very often reliant on pharma being incredibly nimble, which is something that we've had to learn how to do over this past year at a speed that we're not necessarily used to. And I think that's actually a really good thing for the industry, that we're able to turn on that dime. Omnichannel very often is that answer, but it's not something that's as easy as flipping on a light switch. We all have really strong research telling us what our patient journey looks like and what they really need. But until we have those real world insights on how they're interacting with our content to feed off of each other into different channels, you're not going to have that complete experience.
That's fantastic. So that kind of leads us into where data and analytics and technology play in that. Do any of you have thoughts? I could start with you, Rachel, on how you're bringing in the data and analytics, the voice of the patient, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Trista, you mentioned not next best action. You said next
last best experience.
Best experience, which made me think of next best action, which is kind of my favorite phrase lately in terms of omnichannel marketing, and so data, I think, really allows us to look at all of the experiences of the patient or of the HCP and figure out what is that next best action for that particular person, whether it's a specific message or a specific channel to utilize or a specific way that we say the message. So I think data is key there. I think it also allows us to segment our patients or HCPs. So we're treating them differently based on where they are in the journey, whether, obviously whether they've been diagnosed or not, whether they're on drug or not on drug. So we can speak to them in a manner that's going to be most effective for them. Yeah. So I think we have to look at data as not just looking back to analyze how we've done, but using it to look forward to predict our future events.
Great. That's that speed of need. Trista, do you have anything to add in terms of data and analytics?
Yeah, I mean, the industry has come light years in a short period of time. 4 months into COVID, I was on a call with Rima Qureshi, who's the Chief Strategy Officer of Verizon, who's one of our clients. And she said that 5G and cloud computing, edge computing had advanced 20 years in 4 months, in the first 4 months of COVID. And those are the things that are enabling IoT and health tech and wearable devices and all of these things. So the data that we have available to us is greater than ever, and companies are getting better and better at harvesting it, figuring out what's important, how to deliver it, what to act on, to Rachel's point, because that's, you know, there's with so much data, what do you act on? I also think from a tech perspective that AI, HIPAA compliant text, predictive diagnostics are all changing the way we're able to approach the industry. From a Jefferson perspective, one of the first things we did, first two things, we spun up an AI solution around predicting COVID patterns so that we could get ahead of that as best we possibly could. And we also implemented a HIPAA compliant text program where once patients were released from the hospital, we would send them a text every day and say, how are you? What type of symptoms are you having? And multiple patients asked us if they could stay on the text list after they were through their COVID danger, their COVID health scare, because it was something that they felt connected to in a time of isolation. So I think the opportunities that are there are far beyond what we've ever had before. The challenge is really figuring out which to address and how to harvest them and take advantage of them.
Text is such a powerful tool for low friction real world evidence, and for patients to be able to give feedback, and then for us to be able to respond to them in the moment. Like that is the speed of need. So Jared, how about you? You want to talk a little bit about data and analytics in your world?
Yeah, the data and analytics, as always, is absolutely critical in order to respond in real time or close to it and provide a dynamic experience for these patients. So, we do that in-depth research and understand, this is what we think they need. Until they're actually interacting with what we have, we don't know. We're kind of taking an amalgamation out of that research. The real world evidence is what's going to drive that next best action. And those things take time to set up, and that's one of the biggest challenges. Is not as easy as flipping on a light switch.
Yeah, it's not. And as we look outside, those we look outside of life sciences, this has been, as I said in my introduction, this has been table stakes in finance. This has been table stakes in hospitality and in automotive and airlines. And we made some really pivotal moves as an industry. So tell me this, and this really wasn't on the agenda, but I'll throw it out there. The employee experience, just in your organization and at Jefferson, and Rachel within your organization, and Jared, what has that been like, and how important has that been for you to connect with customer experience?
As you know, we do a lot of work in employee experience as well, so thank you for that question. Our philosophy has always been, you can't approach customer experience without addressing colleague experience, because they're two sides of the coin, right? So if your research and your insight gathering doesn't include all of the people and all of the ways and all of the channels and tactics in which your audiences are engaging with you, you're not going to be able to fully optimize the experience to the extent that you would. So just in short, it's critically important to understand and address both.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, from my side, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're asking, but I see Alkermes as being incredibly tapped into and empathetic and, patient focused or employee focused on us during COVID. So, we've filled out a number of surveys about how we're feeling and in terms of, working from home and what are we looking for in the future and how is this impacting us and working from home, and the work from home experience now and in the future. And I think that that's a reflection on how our company looks at patients outside of the company, that we really are trying to get in the mindset of patients as well as employees.
And responsiveness too, right? To close that loop. How about you, Jared?
Yep. I think Eisai has been outstanding as far as making sure employees are taken care of. And it's really about them asking, what do we need? And responding when we answer, which is patient experience at its core. What do you need from a technology perspective? Is Teams going to help you more so than Zoom or Remo or whatever platform it is that you need? they get it for us. You need a bigger monitor, you need an external webcam. It happens, and it happens quick.
Rich, can I add one more thing, which I think is important for practitioners, because some of us on this call are obviously service providers to the pharma industry. I think pharma gets a bad rap around CX a lot, and I've never met a person in pharma, in commercial, in R&D, in any part of pharma who doesn't want to know more about what their patients are thinking and how to get to that data and how to do a better job. They're not one person, and maybe I've been lucky, I've just met great people. Yeah. But I think we also need to understand and have good insight into our customers, because it's not for lack of wanting the information or wanting to do more or wanting to learn more, but we have to recognize that within pharma, it's an industry where there is also a tremendous amount of risk in gathering those insights. I mean, we saw what happened with the AZ vaccine in Europe a couple of weeks ago. Half of the states in the European Union halted distribution of the vaccine. Now, many people who may have gotten it, are now contracted the disease, and a non-zero number of human lives will be lost because of that. So when you invite that sort of feedback and you invite that sort of two-way communication, it can risk the therapy not being on the market. So we really have to recognize the seriousness of that and partner to help to find ways to do it in the right way, to make sure our clients are protected, and we ourselves be a little bit more innovative in how we approach that. And instead of just saying, pharma, you're behind, why aren't you doing more? I think everyone's trying, but it's more than just hard. It's risky as well. We need to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and hopefully, I think we've broken out of that fast follower mindset. So we're running up against the clock, but Seth hasn't popped in yet. So as soon as he does, we'll close everything down. But I have a question. If you were to rip a headline out of the future from 18 months from now in customer experiences in life sciences, what might it say? What do you hope happens? What do you hope changes? What do you hope becomes normal inside of life?
I think that what we've seen as far as the patient dynamic and quick adaptation of telemedicine is going to be here to stay to some degree. It's making a lot of things far more convenient for the patient. Personally, I can't even tell you how many times I've had a virtual call with a physician for a prescription refill or whatever it is, and things get done in less than the time it would take me to drive to their office.
Kind of glorious. How about you, Rachel? Is there something top of your mind for when you look 18 months out that would be exciting for you?
Yeah, a headline that says research shows that patients now feel that their drug companies listen to them and are really taking care of them. That would be nice.
That is really nice, because nobody in this industry sets out to go, gosh, I wish I could create a really bad experience for my end customer, and I want to let them know that I'm not listening to you at all, and my patient service platform is going to be a coupon, a copay card, and a Schwartz container. That's not what we've set out to do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We've set out to do something much more elegant and much more brilliant, and it becomes beautiful the more it becomes invisible. So, Trista, I also gave you a couple seconds to think about your headline there.
I had it right away.
Good.
I would say unprecedented industry collaboration improves health outcomes. We know in the U.S., especially, healthcare costs are among the highest in the world. Our outcomes are not among the best in the world. And, I'd love to see more collaboration. Our CEO of Jefferson, Steve Klasko, just wrote a book with a Silicon Valley entrepreneur called Unhealthcare. It was sort of a follow-up to an earlier book called Unscaled. And it begins with CEO of a 100-year-old academic medical center and a Silicon Valley entrepreneur walk into a bar, ... And so I'd really love to see more of those non-traditional industry collaborations. I'd like to see payers and healthcare systems, payers and providers, patients collaborating, because I think with the best minds, on some of these issues, solutions will follow. So that's my wish. I hope I see that in 18 months.
That's great. And that question just came in about just kind of that into the Q&A, that how do you leverage non-pharmaUX? So that was timely. And here he is. I said, well, thank you all.
I'm just trying to get you to
thank you
look
all
at
very much for your time and for your insights. I think it was a really
Hold on.
Oh,
I just
you
popped in to
more?
let you know that there were questions in the queue, Rich, if you hadn't seen them. So you have about 10 more minutes of discussion.
Oh, good. Because I
Or
was
just
reading
answer
the
this question.
Q&A.
And
Seth, I'm not seeing them. So if you could read them off, because I'm not seeing anything
you
other
did.
than.
How do you leverage non-pharmaUX customer experiences and expectations to help drive your approach to UX solutions in support of pharma programs? So just as you mentioned, just you phrased it a little bit better. So we can roll with that question you have there.
Yeah. So let's do that then. So Jared, have you looked at what's going on in CX, UX outside of pharma, and the experiences that you have every day and the experiences you and your colleagues have every day to say, why can't it be more like this? You just talked about telemedicine, where it's like, oh, do I need to go schedule an appointment and drive to a doctor? No, I can just be present and be here. Are there other things, other industries you're looking at?
Absolutely. I'm always looking at other industries as far as what can we take and make pharmacize it. There's always great examples from other industries. One of the ones I love looking at is automotive. They are always one of the first to try new technologies, and we have the benefit of we can let them try something new and take a step back and see, you know what, I think that one's going to work, and it'll stick around for a little while too.
Good. How about you, Rachel? Are you looking? It's not like any of us are going out and staying in hotels, or we're flying very infrequently, if at all. But have there been other experiences during COVID that you've said, gosh, why can't we be more brilliant like that?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned the automotive industry, because I've noticed a few examples like that too, or when you bring your car and you get a text that says, it tells you what the issue is and click here to reply, or, say, yes, you'd like it repaired. It's just very seamless. But I had an experience actually. Well, I had two experiences that got me thinking. I was giving a presentation on Monday regarding omnichannel, and I held up Disney as being a great example of really surrounding the customer and how seamless everything is. And then I actually personally was trying to book tickets to Disney, and I could not find the price of a child's ticket on the website anywhere. And I texted my mom and I said, why can't I find the price? And she texted me a link, and it wasn't even on Disney's website. And I just thought that was so humorous that, they're a great example, but they still have a lot to learn. But the other example was I found such an insightful customer insight that was applied, where I was posting a computer for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and I was doing it on my laptop, and it said, oh, do you have your photos on your mobile phone? Click here and we'll send you a push notification to upload from your mobile phone. And I thought, that is so brilliant, because who doesn't stand there with your mobile phone taking pictures of stuff, and then when you want to do it on your laptop, you're emailing it to yourself or you're texting it to yourself. And I thought that was such a great way to integrate desktop and mobile for such a seamless experience. And I think that's the kind of thing we need to bring to pharma.
Yeah, we don't draw lines between technologies and channels as consumers in our daily lives. So why would we think patients and physicians would draw lines between channels? No, we have to harmonize those channels. How about you, Trista?
It's an interesting question, and you did some work around this about a year ago, Rich. I know you did an analysis of a whole bunch of pharma websites, just as one example, to see, what was what. And there's a whole body of thought around the psychology of choice and giving people too many choices. And I remember you and I had a long conversation, a really interesting one, around how some of the content is organized. I mean, just talking about content, how it's organized, and how many choices a person is presented with when they come to your site, or your, look in your patient brochure for the first time. It's just an incredible amount of choices, and it actually deters people. I mean, there's tons of research from making any choice when you give them too many choices. So I think that's a really simple thing that we can take away. The second thing is the way that consumer companies do their research. So even if you're only doing, meeting with 12 patients on a patient panel 4 times a year, there are ways that you can utilize technology to get more out of those interactions and more insights. And I'll give Medallia a little bit of a shout out. We've been using Medallia's Living Lens platform to do research for a major pharma client recently. And they say that 92–93% of communication is nonverbal. So to have the video interface, it can analyze emotion. I can type in a theme. It can surface all of the quotes about that particular theme. I can build a show reel that I can show to my clients within literally 5 minutes. And hearing the patients speak about some of their experiences. And it's not just the way that they interact with you and your brand, but the things that are in their life. A huge difference. So I think, one, getting the simple stuff right, and 2, approaching market research more like a consumer company would.
Yeah, thank you. That's really great, and thanks for that shout out. And Rachel, you raised something about Disney, who they just do it so brilliantly. But it puts me in the mindset, and it's a question that I ask all the time. Like, I ask to the brands I'm working with, what would you do differently if you charged admission? How would you behave? Because you think about a place that you go to that charges you to walk in the door, and you're like, oh, it's got to be wonderful from the very beginning, as that person just parted with dollars. I've got another question that's come in through the channel that says, what does CX look like in pharma, specifically digital customer experience? Does anybody have any thoughts on what digital customer experience looks like inside of pharma? Or is anything not digital that we're doing?
I mean, I think it's important not to lose sight of the human piece of it. I was talking with one of my tech clients the other day, and they want to be known for their tech. And we were talking about how we need to be careful not to rely on the tech too much and take the humanity out of it. So I think, it highly dependent on your patient audience. If, are you a rare disease? Are you a blockbuster? The level of tech that you want to bring into it. But there are endless opportunities that there weren't before. And I don't think there's a one size fits all of what does ideal digital CX look like for pharma. It really comes back to understanding your patient audiences, which goes back to the insights, and building the right mix of digital solutions and human solutions throughout the process so that they feel optimally supported, heard, and, as you said earlier, Rich, loved.
Yeah.
So something I'm a big proponent of, to expand on that, is creating a dynamic experience. So being able to take those insights based on what is this particular customer doing, to make that experience more seamless for them, which may not be the same experience that the person next door is having.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all, and we have the technologies and all the privacy in place to be able to see, what people are doing, how they're doing it, and understand why they're doing it. Because everybody's kind of on a different hunt, and when we look at patient success stories and they become a monomyth, that's not the journey that we take in the real world. We're going to go into a pharmacy, and some third party is going to interrupt us, and something is going to break somewhere along the lines. The important thing is when it does, to rescue, right? You look at when something breaks inside of an Amazon experience or an Apple experience, there's a rescue line that's thrown to you to recover you as a customer, to satisfy you. But how about you, Rachel? Is there anything specifically in the digital world, in your world, that you're looking at as kind of a CX beacon?
I think it's just a different way to say what Jared and Trista both said is, the right message at the right time in the right place, and that right place might not be digital. So, digital definitely has its place, but recognizing that it might not be, and there's other ways to communicate. Yeah,
and we know that the one person that's guaranteed to have access to the physician is the patient, and the physicians are looking, that's where, in the world of intermediaries that we live in, that the patient experience and the physician experience, you can't pull them apart, because the doctor's office wants help front office and back office to be able to serve these people in the right way. So it's looking at it very holistically. Those of you that are working in consumer, how are you connecting with your professional colleagues in that regard?
Just, Rich, one thing because you mentioned telemedicine, which we really haven't touched on a lot. I think the other thing to recognize in this digital landscape is the adoption of technologies like telemedicine has advanced by years in a very short time. within a month of COVID, within a month of the COVID quarantine, we went from, at Jefferson, 50 telemedicine visits a day to 2,500 telemedicine visits a day, like that. You know, and I'm proud that we have a leading telemedicine platform, and our leader of that area, Judd Hollander, is amazing. But, you know, people are much more comfortable with Zoom, with telemedicine, to a level that they never were before. And I think that creates not just some great digital opportunities, but great human opportunities. And I just thought we should touch on that in the digital landscape, since it's been the biggest thing that's, you know, been happening. And
yeah, you know, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago where I was in a different role, and I was actually told by somebody in my company, the client wants you to stop talking about telemedicine because it makes you sound crazy, because they don't want to do it and they don't want to talk about it. And the doctors, they've spent so much time.
yeah, payers and coverage, and there's a lot of barriers. Yeah.
But it's the same doctors and it's the same patients, and now we've been forced into it, and we can't go backwards from here. So here's Kristen to tell us what's next.
I am. I want to thank you guys for a fantastic panel. This was a great discussion to kick off the day. It was perfect. So thank you all very much for your inputs.